Many fans here in this shit.
Hello and welcome back to MDG Media. Today we're covering round 2 front 9 from the FPO division in the last Euro Tour event of the season. It is of course the Andalucia Open, played in beautiful Chipiona, Spain. My name is Elias Luukkonen and I will be taking you through this round today by myself. And we have the same card as last round. Silva Saarinen, obviously the hottest player in Europe throughout this season. Some might say that's an arguable claim, but she has been winning tournaments left and right. And here's another player that has been playing very well. Jenni Karppinen even had a win at Sierravuori Open. Has kind of been overshadowed by Silva throughout the season. The third player, Birgit Vider from Estonia. A newer player to myself, we did see her play in round 1. A well-rounded player, throwing both forehand and backhand off the tee and 4 approaches. And of course the local Aida Braga. Sorry for the possible mispronunciation of the name, representing the locals out here, the only Spanish player in the field. Of course, we only have a 4-player field. A lot of the top European players had already ended their season at this point. And I apologize for the late release of the video. We did have some problems in the production of this coverage, but happy to be bringing it to you and hopefully improving our production schedule for next year. We're starting on hole 1. It's a pretty straightforward, just 101 meters, but already kind of starting off the theme of this course, where you have that river on the right side, considered OB, and that path on the left side of the basket, also considered OB. And that's something we're gonna be seeing throughout the round. Pretty much on a majority of the holes. There are not a lot of holes on this course that don't have any OB. And as you saw there, Silva with a pretty regular shot. I believe that was a little bit higher than what she was trying to do, as we did see her almost park this hole with a pretty low shot in yesterday's round. And Jenni right there with a beautiful hyzer into the circle. That's really how you want to start off the round on this round that was pretty calm compared to what it was yesterday. Really the wind is down. Yesterday was extremely windy. Of course yesterday from the point of this video being filmed. So round 1 was the windy round. And Birgit there as well, being a little bit more of a, doesn't quite have the same arm speed as Silva and Jenni. Just puts it down there on the edge of circle 2. And Aida, pretty good flight on that disc. She has good rotation on the shots. As Birgit almost making it from that outer edge of circle 2. And here's somebody who's not stranger to making long putts. Not this time though. Silva has been making some waves both in Europe and also in the US with her strong putting skills. Looks like we're gonna have a lot of pars unless Jenni can make it from here. That's not the case. We're gonna have a par frame on hole 1 here. Not exactly what the players were hoping for. It's one of the more straightforward holes on the course for sure. Even with this hole having that water and the path on the left side considered as OB, you could still argue that this is on the wider side of fairways for this course. A lot of holes have that OB in the circle, just a few meters away from the basket. But this one being a bit of an exception. And hole 2 is kind of exactly what I was talking about. You have this early Mando tree on the right, which you have to go left of. So the course designer forcing you to go either down the middle or over the left side path, which is of course considered OB. Same thing for the right side path, same thing for the road behind the basket. A lot of OB to be found here, and really important just to hit that gap off the tee. Keep your shot low to avoid any sort of fade outs or big turnovers to the right side. Silva disagreeing with me a little bit there, going with the higher shot, really challenging that ceiling. And that's a really good result on this hole. It's extremely rare to see somebody inside of circle 1, and really the best shots usually landing in that circle 2 range. As we see Jenni turning this over a little bit, flirting with the right side OB, but that should be just fine for her. Really good par position, and that's exactly what you want here. You don't need the birdie. All of these players know that it's unlikely that anybody is going to birdie this hole in the entire tournament. You know, if you take 3 pars, you're probably going to be taking multiple strokes on the field. And as I was talking about the hole, Birgit threw a nice shot, and Aida with a big correction of last round, although looks like she has still found that left side OB. She's kind of on the line there. On this course, if you're on the curb of the path, then you're considered safe. So that's a bit of a difference to a lot of courses we play. Usually if you're on the curb, that means that you are OB. But it looks like Aida might actually just have been saved by that curb rule. So everybody on the card looking at pars, and we might even have a run coming up here from Silva. Though that tree just being perfectly in the way. Really the only obstacle in the middle of the fairway. Ah, that's a tough miss. Just, I believe, just outside the bullseye there for our Spanish hero. You could almost say it's the. And Birgit also with the miss. Very unfortunate to see. Those are 2 of the shortest misses we have seen, I believe, so far, even in the much windier round 1. I don't think we had such close misses. Might be up to nerves, might be just lack of focus. You never really know. Of course, if you know the players better, then you can, for example, if I knew all of these players perfectly well, I could make some better assumptions about what was distracting them. But to be honest, as a player, a lot of commentators make excuses about something distracting the players. But most of the time it's just lack of focus in that very moment. And that's okay, that happens to everybody. As we're moving on to hole 3, once again the same theme. You have this reddish path on the left side that's going to come into view in just a second, and that gravel path on the right side, both of the paths being OB, so you have to stay on the grass. And this is a nice looking shot from Silva. Just catching the last tree, I believe, but she's going to be on the edge of circle 2. Heavy anhyzer here. This needs to get down, and it does not. That's going to be OB by a good bit on that right side, and pretty tough miss on a hole that is not particularly easy. It's not a hole that you're really gonna see a lot of players birdie. It's really another one of these good par holes. And as you can see, Birgit even not really playing for the birdie, but rather just trying to get down there, give themselves a nice long jump putt or a short, easy approach. This one is also turning a bit more than you would like to see, and that's going to be OB. You can see just how easily that right side OB comes into play. Both Jenni and Aida not really moving that much right, but just the fact that you have to be extremely straight if you want to be in bounds and up to the basket on this one. As Birgit has grip locked it to the right, and that one's gonna stay OB. That's a really tough miss there. I imagine she just had a really bad late release there. And the putt's kind of coming out weird for everybody on this hole. So this will be for a bogey here from around 15 meters. And that was a good run. Very good run, good line, good commitment. Oh, and the putting struggles continue. That's so tough to see, and you know, I can tell from experience when you have those couple of early short misses on the green, it's so difficult to come back after that and make the next putt. That is usually more difficult than the ones that you have just missed. I feel like every miss kind of adds to that insecurity about putting that, you know, a lot of the best players usually don't have, but after a couple of those misses it really starts creeping in. And that can happen even for the best of players. But moving on, hole 4, par 5, really interesting and beautiful hole. Interesting at the beginning, beautiful at the end. As you're thinking of kind of from the woods, you have to get out of the woods on your first shot. Somehow, there's a couple of routes. You can go directly down to the shore of the lake, you can go through the woods to the right. Really the important thing, just get out of the woods on your second shot, get as much distance over or around the lake as possible. And after that, if you have successfully thrown 2 good shots, you should have no more than about 50 meters left to the basket. And Silva taking the pretty conventional play. You have a good gap over there. Just trying to get through some of the trees and to the open near the shore of the lake. Jenni actually threw this shot into the water in round 1. Couldn't quite see the disc land, but I assume she must have kept it a little bit shorter, which is great to see. It's really not a shot that you want to mess up. Usually it's the second or third shot that's the most difficult on this one. And everybody kind of taking different routes here. Birgit going for that forehand, but a different gap compared to Jenni. And Aida here for the backhand shot. That is the best position that anybody on the card has. She's far on that right side in the open. That one tree should not be in her way. And actually looks like Jenni is in a really good position as well. That's really what you want on this first shot. And you can see she only has about 35 meters from there. So 2 good shots down and only a short approach left. And Birgit as well, kind of challenging that long OB. From that angle, I'm not sure whether that was the OB path or the shorter path kind of going through the fairway. But everybody throwing pretty good shots here. And Aida to follow. That looks very good as well. Nothing wrong with that shot. And yeah, it looks like it was the fairway crossing path. Usually if you have that sort of a path crossing the fairway on this course, that means that it's not going to be playing as OB. Whereas if you have the same looking path on the outer edge of the fairway, that's almost always OB on this course. Just something to keep in mind. As we saw, really good approach from Birgit. Important to not fade left on this one, as the water is super close, only about 5 or 6 meters from the basket. And this one is looking a little bit dangerous. Needs to sit down, and it does somehow. Very surprised to not see that disc go down in the water. But good enough speed control there. And Silva smartly playing against the slightest bit of slope here. Going with that Anheuser angle. And Jenni. Our group is not really having the strongest of putting days right now. Looks like it's contagious. Luckily for Silva, she doesn't even know what a weak putting day is. And already 2 birdies on the card. And that's the third one for Aida. Jenni being kind of left out of the party here. Well played by the card. They really made that hole look pretty easy. And here's another hole that can be made look quite easy. It's really not, it's not a very complicated hole. You only have 109 meters of distance, which is obviously kind of at the edge of a lot of players. You have that OB path on the right, as you would expect. The path on the left side is actually not considered OB. So really the only trouble is that path on the right side and the very late bushes just between the right side path and the basket. So you would like to fade a little bit left before those last bushes on the right side. Kind of exactly like Silva is doing. That's a good shot, and while she's not in the circle, I'm sure she would like to be in the circle, as she has good distance and it's a pretty straightforward hole. She's no stranger to making those 11-meter putts. At the same time, Birgit kind of playing a safer shot. As I mentioned on hole 1, she's a little bit behind on the arm speed compared to these other players. So rather playing the shorter shot, not trying to risk it. As Aida goes kind of in between. Not really all the way to the basket, but rather about 20 meters short. And let's see, Jenni. You can hang this out pretty wide to the right. Usually the discs like to come back pretty well. And that's a good shot. She's gonna be there in the circle, just 7-8 meters left. And Birgit here. Looks like she's got a good bit of power on that jump putt of hers. It's a good thing to see. And Aida there, just putting it under the basket, knowing that she's had some putting struggles. As Silva is making it from outside the circle. Well done there. Already going -2 for this round. And a good putt from Jenni as well, going even par for this round. I remember in the last round, Jenni was actually even par through 9 holes. And I believe Silva was only 1 over. So they really know how to play this front 9. And that's really important. I feel like the back nine sets up for, in a way, it sets up for more failure, really. You have those tighter, windier holes on the back compared to these, you know, a little bit wider, shorter holes on the front. And hole 6, a true island hole. Not because the green is on an island, but because the entirety of the hole is on an island. Just 80 meters, you have a lot of options on what to do here. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if each and every one of our players took a different route here. But I feel like the most common one is the straight shot. And Silva is taking that straight shot, and what a beautiful result there. She's truly dialed right now, and this time she's not even gonna have to make a putt. Let's see if Jenni can answer that, and looks like yes. She's gonna be a little bit short there, not quite getting the flip up on that slow speed disc. A little bit low there from Birgit. It's kind of tough. You have to challenge that ceiling a little bit if you're going for that mid-range or putter. And Aida has kicked all the way to the water. That's tough. It's really tough, but you can see calming herself down with some breathing exercises, and I have to give big respect to Aida for holding it together pretty well in round 1. Both saw it on coverage and live when we were playing this event. You know, she was never getting, wouldn't say she was ever getting, you know, mad in a way that she had some bad looking outbursts on the course, but rather staying focused. You know, of course, a little bit disappointed with the round 1, but a very mature player on the mental side. As looks like we're gonna have Silva taking the 3rd birdie in a row, setting a crazy pace for the round, just separating herself from the field right now. As we're gonna have Silva take that birdie, 2 pars from Jenni and Birgit, and Aida for the lone bogey. Hole 7, this time teeing off from the same island that the last hole was on, but we're teeing to the mainland. Green is pretty much fully open. Really the difficulty on this hole is the initial trees of the tee. The widest gap, and well, in the last round I thought that it would be the most common gap, is this left side Anheuser. But really it looks like most of our players are going through the right side trees. There is a bit of a tighter gap for a flat to hyzer shot on that right side. And that's exactly what Silva is going for. Looks like she has done it really well here. And that's a good shot. She's gonna be a little bit short, just about 15 meters left. And Jenni for the same gap, turning it over unfortunately. But that's all safe, no trouble on that right side, no OB on this hole besides the water. And I believe if you go far beyond the basket. And Birgit having an interesting play. She did this in round 1. At that time it was not particularly successful, but this time she's done it well and just playing for the par. And this is the route that I like the most, although I don't like that result. Aida turning it over too much, and she's in the middle of the pond. She might not get that disc back. And now for the second round in a row, Birgit has an outside look for the par. And yeah, that's a tough mistake for Aida. She's gonna have to still make that putt for the bogey. At the same time, Silva is putting for the birdie, and how is that possible? She's making everything. Already the second outside the circle putt. Just in 4 holes. This is incredible what we're seeing right now, and just showcasing really how the entire season has went for her. You know, Silva is a player that when she's feeling comfortable, she can be almost unstoppable. As that's a good cleanup for Aida and Jenni for a par. Not really losing a lot of ground as far as negative or positive strokes, but losing a lot of ground to Silva Saarinen, as the gap is already 4 strokes between the top 2 players. As we're moving on to hole 8, one of the toughest birdies on the course. You have to throw something incredible if you want to get even inside of circle 2, and getting into circle 1 is almost unheard of. Have this early low ceiling gap, the Mando on the right to keep players from going around the right side. Most players throwing some sort of a low driven shot, just trying to get forward as far as possible. And then really the good shots leave you with somewhere between 30 to 15 meters. And for Silva there, that's gonna end the birdie streak. She's gonna be more than 50 meters out. And Jenni hitting the gap just beautifully, but that's really the common result. Even with the good shots, it's really difficult to get that finish to the right where the basket is. So if you wanted to park this hole, I think it would be the forehand shot that we see from Birgit. That's the best option. But you have to have incredible power on that forehand if you want to make it all the way to the basket. So Birgit there definitely gonna be playing for the par. And Aida here to end that bogey streak. And looks like she's done a good job of that. Gonna have no more than about 30 meters left. And that's really well done from Silva. Good speed control, important on this hole as there's only about 4 meters of space behind the basket before that OB path. So once again, OB very close to the basket. And Birgit is gonna have a scary putt. Jenni just putting it under the basket. That's really what you're gonna see from most of the players. Same thing for Aida, leaving it just a few meters away. Should be no problem there. And Birgit with a good, confident stroke there. Kind of putting from the left hip compared to a lot of players putting from the middle. For example, you see Silva there putting from the middle. I feel like the putting from the left hip is something that has been somewhat popularized by Gannon Burr, I believe. He was really one of the first players to actually make the left hip sort of putt really work. Before that, I believe almost all great putters were putting from the middle. As we're moving on to the finishing hole of front 9, hole 9. You have, once again, you have OB path on the right and on the left. And a lot of trees. Arguably the most wooded hole on the course. You have so many gaps to choose of. The most open gap would be the left side Anheuser or forehand, which goes over the OB path. but I doubt any of our players is going for that. And rather we're gonna see a lot of backhands through the right side woods, potentially trying to keep the shots pretty low to avoid that very low ceiling. And Silva kind of hitting the gap well, but missing the height pretty badly there. And she's gonna have a lengthy approach from halfway down the fairway. Jenni keeping it a little bit lower there. Well done there, but just catching the last guardian tree on that right side. She's gonna have a very long look or a short approach, as this looks like the cleanest line we've had so far. Really well done there from Birgit, even fading before the tree that Jenni was able to hit. It's a pretty tough hole to reach all the way. Really, if you don't hit your line, for example going too high like this, your chances of getting through all the trees are almost zero. And Aida there will be in trouble of getting another bogey, unfortunately. And even Silva, she's had a clean sheet so far. Just 4 pars, 4 birdies. But on this one, she's gonna have to earn it for the par. Kind of the same thing for Jenni, although much shorter, just about 5 or 6 meters left. We're gonna have a lot of putts on this one. Good way to end the front 9, especially if the putts end up going in the baskets. So for the sake of momentum, this is a very important putt. And of course she does it. Well done. Keeping that 4 under score alive going into the back 9. Silva is setting up for a really hot score. And Aida there, good looking stroke, unfortunately not finding chains. And hopefully able to clean up here, as she does, for a double bogey. I'm sure she's not quite happy with that front 9, but at least she was able to avoid the biggest of numbers. I believe a bit of an improvement from yesterday, and Birgit as well, just 3 over. So we have huge separation between the field already through 1.5 rounds. Thank you guys for watching, and once again my apologies and the whole MDG's apologies for the late release. We had some technical problems, some personal problems, but nothing we cannot fix. So thank you for watching, and hopefully see you all on the back.